Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. Brazil's far-right former president Jair Bolsonaro has been taken to a US hospital with abdominal pains, a day after his supporters stormed the National Congress and other key government buildings in Brazil. He's not thought to be seriously ill. Brazilian officials say at least 1,500 Bolsonaro supporters have been arrested. From Brasilia, Katie Watson reports.
Brasilia has been clearing up the mess and trying to understand where it all went wrong. Diego Scardoni is a senior parliamentary advisor to the Socialism and Liberty Party, which is allied to the government.
What we witnessed in Brazil over the last 24 hours was building up over the last few months. Bolsonaro refused to accept the elections, and also his supporters.
A Supreme Court judge ordered the protesters' camp outside the military barracks to be cleared in Brasilia. Other camps are being dismantled across the country, with protesters leaving begrudgingly. The calm may have been restored for now, but the deep political division remains.
The US President Joe Biden and his Mexican counterpart, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, are having talks in Mexico City, expected to focus on regional cooperation, migration and the disruption of drug smuggling. The two are being joined for some meetings by Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Will Grant is in Mexico City.
Migration, right as we speak, is probably one of the positives. They've just had that decision by the Biden administration to allow 30,000 migrants a month from various nations like Cuba and Nicaragua, and in return, Mexico will take 30,000 deportees. That shows a degree of negotiation and cooperation on that issue. But there are negatives too. There's going to be a really thorny issue on energy, with Andrés Manuel López Obrador sort of doubling down on nationalist policies, which both the United States and Canada say hurt their firms.
The president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, says his country will no longer offer refuge to people fleeing conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Here's Mary Harper.
This is not Rwanda's problem, said Mr. Kagame. He said the rest of the world had completely missed the point when it came to Eastern Congo. The real threat to security, in his view, is what he describes as the remnants of Hutu extremist forces who tried to wipe out his Tutsi ethnic group in the Rwandan genocide of 1994. Kigali has meddled in Eastern Congo for years. Now it's being accused of backing the M23 rebel group, which has captured swathes of territory in recent months, sending tens of thousands of refugees across the border into Rwanda.
Officials in southern Nigeria say 6 people have been rescued after being abducted from a train station in Edo State on Saturday evening. They say they have arrested a suspect. BBC News. Indonesia has issued a tsunami warning after a powerful earthquake hit the Banda Sea close to East Timor. The 7.6 magnitude earthquake struck in the early hours of Tuesday morning, and tremors were felt as far away as Australia. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has urged the International Monetary Fund to agree to a pause in its demand for economic reforms before releasing more financial aid. Mr. Sharif said Islamabad needed some breathing space as it tackled the impact of last year's devastating floods. And Barasan Etirajan reports.
The IMF has said it wants the government to withdraw subsidies on petroleum products and electricity, among other reforms. Shehbaz Sharif said his government was committed to the terms of the deal, but questioned how on earth the additional burdens could be shouldered by the country's poorest. Pakistan desperately needs the money as the country's central bank's foreign currency reserves have dropped to less than $6 billion, barely enough to pay for a month's imports. Separately, at the Geneva meeting, Pakistan has received pledges of more than $9 billion from bilateral and multilateral lenders to help recover from the floods.
The European Union and Britain say they've made a significant step forward in post-Brexit trade talks, reaching a deal on sharing trade data on goods going from the British mainland to Northern Ireland. The agreement's part of continuing talks about how to reform a treaty known as the Protocol, which kept Northern Ireland aligned with some EU trade rules. A report co-produced by the UN, US and EU says human action to save the ozone layer appears to have worked and that it should fully recover within decades. The ozone layer began depleting in the 70s and gaping holes were confirmed in 1985. 2 years later, 46 countries signed up to the Montreal Protocol, banning harmful chemicals thought to be causing the damage. BBC News.